Hello and welcome to my first episode of a mini painting workshop. We're going to be doing some different techniques and just looking at simple techniques that you can try and build up your repertoire of skills for painting minis. This is really aimed at anyone who's either just getting into the hobby or has been in for a little while and is just looking to learn some new techniques. In this particular episode, we're going to be looking at non-metallic metal, and a very just simple non-metallic metal, nothing fancy, just something that is, if you put some practice and some time into, you can get really good at it and you can get some really good results really quickly. So I've got here a Warden from the game Shadows of Brimstone, and this particular Warden, I've painted it with a kind of an old rusted iron NMM style. With this one, this is a finished model here. We've got the iron, but we've also got rust, and we've got a little bit of OSL coming from the eyes. And there's kind of a few things that have been going on. So in this series, we're going to be trying to cover three things. This episode is going to be just the iron non-metallic metal. But if you like the video and you stick to watching some more of them, the next one will actually be covering how we do the rust effects. And then the third one will actually be doing some OSL, where the other Wardens actually have some weapons that have a lot more of this kind of OSL glowing effect. So without further ado, we're going to go and jump right in and show how to approach painting some simple non-metallic metals. All right. So here is our model. I've painted it here. I've primed it with a zenithal priming. So I base coated the whole thing gray, and then with an airbrush sprayed from above with some white ink. To be honest, you don't have to do this, but for the camera here, it's very useful, and even just for your eyes, it's very useful to be able to just see all the details that you're painting. However, if you've just base coated everything black or a dark gray, I think that will be fine. You'll be able to still do this technique. It doesn't require you to have this particular type of priming. I just find this visually useful, and if you can do that with rattle cans as well. I just like using the airbrush. I live in Japan. There's not really much space outside of where I live to be able to use rattle cans properly. Anywho, all right, we're gonna jump in. So when I paint non-metallic metals, especially if they're kind of like silvers, irons, grays, things like that. First of all, you need to be able to make a grayscale, and to do that is very simple. All you need is a white and a black paint. Here I've got the AK white and AK black. This works great for me. This is fine, but really any of your brands can achieve this effect. Any kind of miniature painting acrylics work great. So find a white and a black. It doesn't really matter which brand. They'll all do the job that you need it to do. And I'll always add a little bit of color into my non-metallic metals. This is kind of important. A pure grayscale just doesn't quite look natural. It doesn't quite look right. I've tried it in the past and it never really works for me. So adding just a touch of color is really good for giving it a little bit more life, a little bit more, just a little bit of color in the mix. And so I recommend doing a blue. Blues work really nicely. It doesn't really matter exactly which blue you use, because we're using such a little amount just to tint our grays a little bit. But I find this deep blue to be quite good. You can also do it with turquoises. You could do it with purples as well. Experiment, have some fun. But we're going to try it with some deep blue. So all we need is these three colors. That's all you need for this particular NMM. So give them a good old shake and put them into, I recommend having a wet palette. If you don't have one, I do recommend getting one. They are absolutely super, and they will help you level up your painting no end. I love mixing my paints, and here we're going to be mixing paints a lot. So this is the thing where you need that wet palette for that, so that your paints don't just dry instantly. Acrylic paints tend to dry very, very fast comparatively to other types of paints. And especially our miniature paints, when we're using such small amounts, they'll even dry on the end of your brush very, very quickly. So having a wet palette, I think, is very, very important. All right, and so what we're going to do is we're just going to do one panel at a time. So I'm going to go over a single panel with you right now. We're going to go and do a shoulder pad here. I'll just do the whole shoulder pad with you. So initially, all I'm going to do is I'm going to paint it black. So just, again, get your brush and just go over the whole thing in black. So this is where, you know, the zenithal prime really doesn't matter. The zenithal prime there is just to give me some information when I'm looking at the miniature before painting. It can sometimes help with, if you're using things like contrast paints and stuff, it'll help keep a lot of that information underneath for you, which is going to be very, very useful. But for this, we don't necessarily need it. So I'm just going to be going over the whole thing in this black. Once we've got it black, which is almost there, we can then move on to adding some more color, or at least start our NMM that we're going to be painting. If you're not familiar with it, NMM is the abbreviation for non-metallic metals. So we're using matte paints instead of metallic paints to give a metallic look to our models. All right. So there we go. I've just painted it all black. Nice and simple. Oh, let me just get in between all of those grooves there. You don't want to leave any bits unpainted. There we go. Just give it a once over. Make sure you've kind of got it, and we're pretty good. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to slowly raise the levels. We're going to go from a very, very dark grays up to the very, very light grays. And so I'm going to just take some of my black on my wet palette. And this is where it's really important to have a wet palette, because what you can then do is you can start mixing your paints and they'll stay wet on the palette, and you can make use of them again and again before they dry. So I'm going to take a spot of this blue, as you can see here. I'm going to mix that one in there. And what that's going to do is, you don't really see much difference, but there is a little bit of blue in that dark gray. So it's very, very dark gray, you'll see. Almost still black. And we're just going to be we're going to keep this very generous, but what we're trying to do now is try and figure out, okay, where is the light going to be landing on this thing? And we're going to be very, very generous at the moment, because we're still so dark and this is still kind of early on. So I'm just going to be hitting everything pretty much. Maybe just leave a teeny bit of that black in some of the deeper recesses. And that's all I do to begin with. Yeah, I'm just going to go in there. And catch those bits that are curling there. As you can see, the black had already dried. That's how fast acrylics dry. They dry incredibly fast on your models. So again, another reason why you need your wet palette for making the best use out of your paint. Okay. Right, that was nice and simple. We've now got a grey on there. You're not going to really see much of a difference at the moment, but it is there. And we're building up those layers very carefully. So now we just take another spot of that white. We're going to mix that in, and we're going to get that next layer up. There we go. We've got a dark grey, and it's still kind of building up there. We can take a touch of that blue as well, not too much. We don't want it to be too blue, but we just want the sense of that blue is there. Okay, let's carry on. We're going to do the same thing again, but a slightly smaller area. We're just going to lightly touch on each of these areas, still covering most of the surface. But again, just leaving some of that previous layer behind, so it creates that natural transition. This is a quick version, so it's very important to leave that previous layer kind of visible between the layers that you're painting, so that you get that natural transition without having to kind of go back and forth a lot of the time, or losing some of the work that you've been working on there. Okay, there we go. It's not looking too bad. All right, we're going to keep adding this white. We're going to keep moving up. We got a nice gray there. I'm going to take a touch of the blue, just keep that blue present. Okay, I'm still going to touch a little bit more white, I think. Get it a little bit lighter. There we go. Okay. Always good to wick your brush. I like to wick it on my hand. You might wick it on a just a kitchen towel or something like, not kitchen towel, but you know, a paper towel. And then we're just going to keep on going, keep on going. It takes a little bit of patience just to do this, and then just make sure you have a brush that is very pointed. If you're finding brush control to be a bit difficult, maybe that you're not anchoring your hands correctly. So you may be trying to keep paint like this and you'll find your hand shakes or something like that. Anchor your hands together a bit like this, and then suddenly if one hand shakes, the other hand shakes in motion together, and you'll find you'll get much better brush control. So even if you suffer from some shaky hands as I do, doing this will just anchor your hands together so they move together. So even if you shake, the model shakes with you. Everyone's moving together. And there we go. We're just going to keep moving forward. There's lots of nice surfaces to bounce the light off of with this particular model. So yeah, the more detail I find sometimes, the easier to do this kind of quick NMM. Flat surfaces can be a little bit more challenging. We'll have a look at one of those a little bit afterwards. All right, we're going to move up a little bit more. Now we're getting much lighter. Okay. And again, we just keep on building that layer. And they start to become very visible now. And the importance with NMM is contrast. You want to go from very, very dark to very, very light. And you want to be catching some quick transitions in between. What we're working on right now is we're just building up lighter and lighter and lighter. All right. Okay, let's keep it going. We're going to get some more white. We're going to mix that in. Now we've got this transition that's building and building. Now we're getting pretty light. I'm going to take a touch of my blue and bring back the blue there. I really want to see some more blue in there. The blue's kind of darkened it a little bit, so we're going to just build that back in with another white. But now we've got a nice blue-gray. Okay, we're going to build this one up again. And just follow the lines of anything that's engraved as the light catches it. Leave anything that's in the recess, in that shadow. Try to avoid covering any of those bits of black that we've got there, and it will help your model just pop and stand out. There we go. Now you can reduce the number of steps if you want to do it faster, and that's absolutely fine. Just know that the more steps that you put in, the more transitions that you build in, the smoother your non-metallic metal is going to look. Okay. Right, I don't think we're going to need any more blue. What we really want to do is we want to get lighter and lighter now. So now we're going to get a very light gray. Feel like the light's going to hit. If I imagine the light's going to be coming down and hitting here, That's where I'm going to see most of my reflection. So that's where I'm going to be concentrating the lighter and lighter grays a little bit more. Still going to catch other areas as well. It's still getting caught by light, but that's where the majority of the light is going to be reflected in my mind. Doesn't matter if it's exact or not, the rule of cool stands. As long as it looks good, you know, it'll be a pretty forgiving in terms of where you place your light. As long as you don't put it somewhere that just confuses the brain. So you're not highlighting the recesses, you're just highlighting all of the things which are embossed out of the design there. Okay, starting to get somewhere. All right, let's go a little bit lighter. Okay, now we're getting very light. We've got this nice, you can see this nice transition that we've been building on the wet palette here. And there we go, look at that. This is now starting to actually look like something. We have that. There's always this breaking point when you're doing NMM that you keep going lighter and lighter, and it won't look very good for a while, and then suddenly you'll get that contrast that you need, and suddenly it starts to sell the effect. And now we're starting to see that effect getting sold with this approach. And then just small areas. Take your time. Don't think about it too much. Just gently paint in each of these areas. If you make a mistake, that's okay. You can always come back. You can always fix it. Okay. That's how we learn. All right. Let's go a little bit lighter. Now this, because if I was going to do, let's say, a very kind of beautiful steel, I might go all the way up to white. But because we want to have a bit of a worn iron kind of look, we're not going to go all the way up. We're just going to go up to this point here. So it's still pretty reflective. It's got a lot of light on there, but we're not going pure white. Pure white would be saved for very clean metals. And I would say as well with steel, I would probably add in a little bit more blue as well. Blue kind of gives a nice cold metal feel to things, and steel would definitely have a good look to it if we added in that blue a little bit more. We can get that kind of bluish sheen into it as well. But we're going for that iron look, so we're going to keep it fairly muted in the blue. We just want a bit in there to kind of give it some life. Okay, there we go. All right, there we are. And we've got right there some basic NMM. Okay, that was with a lot of designs and little patterns and things, which I find personally a lot easier to paint than flat metal. So that bit's kind of an easy part. But if we have a look at the back here, we've got this kind of mottled metal here. This is going to be a lot more difficult. So let's have a go at this one next. All we're going to do is clean our brush. And the good thing is we've actually built our range of colors already, so I don't need to do any more mixing. All I have to do is start off with our black and we'll work our way up. Right, what we're going to do now is we're just going to use the paint that's on our palette already. We may need to top some areas up a little bit from time to time, but for now, this is going to work pretty well for us. Now, you may want to leave it to dry a little bit, otherwise you'll start doing some wet blending. And to be honest, I'm not great at wet blending. It will be something that maybe we can look at in the future, but I'm not aiming to do any wet blending today. Okay, so I'm going to catch the shoulders here. I'm just going to imagine the shapes that we've got. we've got light is coming down here. You can almost see on there a reflection already off of the back, off of the black there. You can use real light there to help you. So look, if I place it down and the light is pointing straight down right now, when you look at it, it is reflecting right off the top here. So I can even almost use that light to help me with going, okay, that's where my lightest point is going to be. I'm going to try and let that help me. Okay, I'm going to try and catch these raised areas here. There's a bit of a raised area here. And I'm just kind of sketching out. I'm going to leave the center there where the spine is. It's indented a little bit. So I'm going to kind of leave that bit a little bit dark. So I'm just going with my feeling here. There's a little bit of a design on that little bit there. But yeah, everywhere where there's these recesses as well, I'm going to leave them dark for now. We may come back and do a little bit more with them. But again, because this is the first initial layer with a very dark blue-gray, we don't need to be too careful. We can cover quite a lot of the model that way. All right, I'm just going to move straight up in with what we've got so far on our palette. I'm going to start here where it's going to be very light and just work that one in a little bit. Do a little bit more there. And because it's mottled as well, I don't want it to be too clean. So I'm doing a very kind of simple stippling, which is just dabbing the paint on. I'm not really doing so many strokes. There's a couple of strokes here and there, but I'm kind of just dabbing the paint on at the moment. It just works for that kind of mottled look a little bit. And it's going to help me with this larger, flatter surface area. All right, let's move up. We're going to be jumping a few steps here. We'll get the next level of grays in, getting lighter and lighter. Because we've already got our work done on the wet palette, this is now turning out to be a lot faster. I'm only going to go down so far. I feel like it's going to get dark again near the bottom. So yeah, we'll just catch the side of the shoulder, the kind of the shoulder blade that's under there. Still leaving this gap down the side here, down the back. And then there's a few designs there catching the light, a few designs here catching the light, a few more mottling, a bit more mottling there. And we're starting to build up an image there. Okay. Then I'm going to continue here. I'm going to again catch the top there. Follow the seam a little bit. We highlight that seam there. That's kind of nice that way. Catch the top of that engraving, catch the kind of the facing of the engraving that's facing towards the sky. That's where the light's going to catch. A little bit on that bit there. We can catch a little bit on the top there. There we go. We're still leaving that black that's in the line there, but we're just kind of highlighting it a little bit by edge highlighting the raised edges. Raised edges often catch light the most. And on our minis, we want to exaggerate that because we're looking at tiny little models. So everything you're doing is basically exaggerating what you would see in real life because they are so small. Carry on with that. Again, I'm getting this mottled look. The surface of this is mottled, so helping me a little bit. Again, I'm just catching a little bit of those edges there. Okay, right, let's move it up to our lightest grays. And again, we're going to be catching the most is at the top here. a little bit on the shoulder blades, and on the thing that's raised. Go. Few random spots where light is catching, and there we go. We kind of got a bit of an NMM on the back plate as well. Right, I'm going to continue with this model, and I'm going to paint up the whole model just like this. I really recommend just doing it one little piece at a time. It feels good that way. You try to do the whole model in one big step, you'll find it very, very grueling, because you're just doing one color at a time the whole way through, and you're never gonna have that finished bit where you're like, yay, I did it. What the advantage of doing a little piece at a time is you can put all your focus into a very, very small piece that you can get finished in, say, 10 minutes. And then you look at it and go, yes, that's exactly how I want it. Or no, I need to fix it up a little bit. And you get it how you really like. Once you're happy with it, then you move on to the next piece. And slowly but surely, you get all of these pieces, all these jigsaws come together and make a really, really, really beautiful model. If you're trying to do everything all at once, you're never going to quite see how those individual parts are going to be looking. And I find I muck it up that way. It never quite looks the way I want it. But if I do it each individual part very, very carefully, it ends up looking really, really nice. Anyway, I'm going to cut now, and I'm going to get on with painting. We'll come back a little bit. All right, see you in a moment. Okay, we're back. It's actually the next day because I was painting quite late last night. I couldn't quite finish it all, but here we are with all of the NMM done on this model here. As you can see, we've just covered the whole model, and we've kind of got this nice grayscale going on where it really, really exaggerates the highlights to the shadows and the recesses, going from a very, very dark to a very, very light. And this really, really helps just pick out all of the details for you, and it looks just really nice. It's quite a simple approach for NMM, and it's good for getting your tabletop standard stuff down. Takes a little bit of time, but with practice you get it down pretty fast, and it's a lot of fun to do as well. So I recommend trying to check this out. Now, if you did enjoy the video, please leave a like, subscribe, and if there's any other kinds of painting tutorials you'd like to see, please let me know down in the comments section as well. Now, we're not finished with the model, so next time what we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding on all of the rust that we've got on this one here. So we've kind of like put in a very clean iron look. Next, we're going to be dirtying it up with some of the rust that we've got on this model here. So that should be a little bit of fun. And yeah, I hope to see you in that video. And thank you very much. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.